Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Sushan.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are remaining in America's finest city, and we are discussing broadcast journalism, in particular, local sports. Our guest this week is Brandon Stone. He is a sports anchor and reporter with KUSI and Fox 5. He started his career with the Prep Pigskin Report, and he has been instrumental in launching many other students, especially SDSU students, with the Prep Pigskin Report. Brandon, I've heard a lot of good things about you over the years. I'm so glad to have you. Welcome to the Where You At podcast.
I paid a lot of people over the years to make sure that good things were said about me, so it's good to see that the dividend made itself. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to spend plenty of time talking about the Prep Pigskin Report, which is definitely a good way to warm up the voice.
Good job on the name. You know, my boss, Paul, once said, if I had known the PPR was going to be so popular, I would not have gone with this name. But I said, you know what? It's better this way. A little tongue twister never hurt nobody.
Yeah, so that's not the only thing that you do. Give us the big picture of the various different things that you do with your job throughout the course of the entire year.
So essentially, my year slices up into two pieces, but under one hierarchy job. I run the sports operations on the KUSI side of our KUSI Fox 5 Nexstar Media Group partnership. That job, even though I consider it a 12-month job, but primarily focused into 7 months, is working on the Prep Pigskin Report, our high school show. It's been a part of a community going near 30 years strong now, profiling the best and the brightest, and I mean that in all forms, of all of our high school football focus. Then the other times when we're not working on that, I'm anchoring the news every single day on the weekday side, and we have shows 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, and we've been doing that cycle for a very long time, in which we're covering all the other prep sports as well as everything college, national, professional, across the globe. Anything that comes and focuses back on San Diego, we're on top of it. We care about players, not just when they're in town, but also what they do after they've left town. A great example, of course, would be the great success we've seen with Xander Schauffele. Even today, as we get ready to record this, I'm going to start focusing on the work he's doing, that he's getting ready to go after the Masters tournament and try to hold 3 major titles at the same time, which hasn't happened since Tiger Woods in 2000 and 2001. And that's been the major focus of our work and my work over the past 17 years, is making sure that we're profiling great people and keeping you up to date on what matters in this community, but also second, making a gigantic difference in the lives of children. That's what we've been focused on since day one. And the PPR really amplifies that, because our show, not to get long-winded, is about showcasing not just the great football players, but also great band members, great workers on the sideline, great coaches, great fans, and being a piece of the community to showcase it, to give it strength, volume, and power. And that's what we've always been about.
When it comes to putting together these stories that you just described, from my understanding, you produce, you edit, you write, you shoot yourself, plus you anchor. Give us what it means to be, in a lot of cases, a one-man band who's putting all of this together.
Well, the first thing I'd say before I answer that is to point out that I've had a great support team behind me that does a lot of the elements that you've said. But the reason that support team has been able to be so instrumental in making sure the show stays strong is doing a lot of these things myself over the years. A lot of people get caught up in the glitz and glamour of, oh, you get to be on TV every day. And I go, that's great. I'm not going to say that I don't enjoy that. That would be a lie. But the thing I've always loved the most is going out with a camera, shooting things, taking it back to the office, cutting it up, breaking news, or showcasing somebody. That's the core of what journalism is. That's the core of what TV journalism should be. There's a question, there's an issue, there's a moment. We go out, we capture it, we bring it home, we cut it up, and we show it to the audience in a way that gets their minds right. It's this cornerstone of entertainment and information. I want to entertain the audience. but I also want to inform them of the things that are really important that they should know about, things that maybe they haven't even been thinking about, that I'm giving to them, and wanting to not meet the moment for our viewers, but push past the moment. I want to raise the level of conversation. I want to raise the level of debate. I want to raise the level of consciousness, and that's what we've really been dedicated to. But the only way you can do that is by being involved in every piece of the project. Everybody should know how to shoot. Everybody should know how to write something to the best of their ability. Everybody should know how to produce a segment or produce a sportscast. And the more we all know about doing that, the more that tide is going to raise all the boats. You're not just segmented into one piece of our program. You're in all the parts of our program, and that's what's made us really strong in the 2 decades that I've been around.
I think this is such a great lesson for students. And I want to kind of rewind to when you were a student, and also so that current students can understand what you did, the process it took for you to understand that it's not just the glitz and glamour, that you have to be able to attain all of these different skills, develop the ability to shoot and edit and write and look good on camera and tell good stories in an efficient way. So let's go back to San Diego.
I don't think the look good on camera part, but everything else, yeah.
So why San Diego State? Why journalism? Where did it all begin for you, Brandon?
Well, let's go backwards to eighth grade. I was in the car going to school. I was in the back of the Nissan Altima, looking brown and wonderful. My dad was in the front seat and I was in the back seat. I was reading the sports pages I would always do in the car. You know, uh, we would sit on the doorstep 6 in the morning, pick it up on the hour drive to school from Lompoc to Santa Barbara. I was headed to junior high and I said, Dad, I think I know what I want to do with my life. And he goes, what, son? In a way where it's like, okay, talk to me, but I also get out of the car because I want to go to work. And I said, Dad, I want to graduate from high school. I want to go to San Diego State. I want to major in journalism. And then I want to go live out the rest of my sports dreams in San Diego and do that. And he goes, sounds great. Get out the car. And I had that plan and I just basically stuck with that plan. And there was a lot of pieces of hard work along the way, but also I'm never going to die. There's a lot of pieces of luck. I still remember when the place I work at now sent out a memo about interns and said they needed them. They sent the memo to one of the teachers there, and that teacher's wife taught the TV broadcasting class. It was the first journalism class of the day. I got that memo and I had morning announcements at 8:02. I immediately stood up, left the classroom, and went to the other teacher in their classroom at 8:04. I didn't even like say, "Hey, I'm gonna." I just left, walked out of the classroom, go over there, and I said, "Tell me about this sports journalism thing you got going. What's going on?" And and then it started from there. Met Paul, Rudy a week later, and a week after that, I was in the building. I was 23, and now I'm 39, and I'm still
Wow.
there.
Oh my goodness. Okay. A lot to unpack from that. First, it was an hour drive to your high school every day.
So we lived in Lompoc, California. God bless anyone on this podcast that's ever heard of it. And that's an hour away from Santa Barbara. So we would take that journey. That was our suburbia. We take that journey every single day, ever since I was 2 years old.
Okay. And what was it about San Diego State? You mentioned that you just knew right away San Diego State. There's a lot of colleges in Southern California you could have picked. Why San Diego?
It appealed to my sports loves at the time. I was always a big San Diego Charger fan. I was always a big Padre fan. So it always just fit in. I want to go to school in the place where I could see my teams all the time. And as a kid, you don't really connect the idea of, oh yeah, you're going to cover all these people that you followed. I was a big fan of LaDainian Tomlinson, growing up. I always tell people it's weird that you can have a sports hero, but you don't get him until you go to high school. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, there I am going to practice and covering him every day. And it's wild. You grow up learning about guys like Adrian Gonzalez and East Lake alum and Brian Giles and Grand Hills alum, but you don't connect what those mean until you get here. And then you're in the clubhouse talking to those guys every day and bothering them every day and having them say no to you every day. It's just a wild thing to think about when you put it in perspective.
And give us the fallout when you leave one class at 8:02 a.m. and then at 8:04 a.m. you're talking to another professor. Give us some of the fallout from just the details that came next as you worked your way in the door at KUSI.
Well, the first thing is you think about this idea. I think it was some politician who said that when you're running for office, you run for office in poetry, but then you govern in prose. And what they really mean by that is you can wax poetic about all things you want to do, but you don't really understand the job until you're in it.
Mhm.
Um, and that's a difficult thing, I think, for a lot of young kids. They don't process what it actually means to be in that job. So I started learning things about the job from the first second I walked in the door, and I'm like, whoa, this is a lot different than I was thinking. I wasn't thinking some of these steps through, like what it means to go go to the stadium and then go down into the bowels in the clubhouse and talk to people, when you have to show up, what you have to do. I remember I had these dreams of, oh, one day I'll have Padres season tickets. Well, you're supposed to have season tickets and also cover a team. Like you don't put you don't put two and seven together until you're there. But you also don't learn. You don't really know how to talk to people yet until you start talking to people every day, and then you go, oh, this is how I talk to people. Oh, this is how the other people around me are asking questions. Oh, these are the questions they're asking to build a narrative that they're going to use in an article or use it in a package in a story. You don't really get all that until you're in it. So I think that's kind of a backwards way of answering your question.
No, it is. It's really good. And then, I think that the first couple of days, whether it's at a job, an internship on campus, are just there's so much that you immediately pick up and consume osmosis. And so I'm wondering, those first days in the KUSI newsroom, what were some of the biggest eye-opening things that immediately started to get you to understand this is what it means to work in TV broadcasting?
Well, when I started, we were still using tape. I know people are like, what's tape? So for those of you listening to this podcast, tape, VHS is these big chunk things with film in them, and we would copy pieces of tape from one to the other, so that way we could put together a whole story. You don't think of building the story; you just think that the story exists, and then you watch someone take up these big machines and start pressing buttons, and going backwards and forwards, and you go, oh, it's not just you talk to somebody and you film it and put it on the air. You're chopping these pieces together and sorting them and re-listening to how this goes. You say, okay, I need to take that information and process it in a different way. Things like that. Or, oh, I need to actually call someone to go see them. It's not as if it's just an automatic thing. We have to work together. But I really started learning a lot of these key things before all this when I started going to state and we started putting together stories. And we started working in our broadcast class and doing all of our JMS work and really started connecting all these pieces. So that way, when I got to KUSI, I understood the basics of it and then could work from there instead of it being here's our group of sound bites, put them together. It's okay, now go collect that sound bite, start chopping it up. You're talking about why San Diego State. Just to go back for a second, when I started learning about different programs in college that could teach journalism from the core up, San Diego State was the one program in Southern California where I felt like it sort of brought it all together. It was a print school. I was reading a lot of San Diego Union Tribune at the time, and all the Union Tribune writers, a huge portion of them were San Diego State alums or people who had been around the college. And I wanted to sort of mirror how their work worked. And obviously, UT still has great people today with San Diego State background too. I really wanted to mirror their work because I wanted to be a writer when I was growing up. I didn't realize I wanted to be on TV or work with TV. I wanted to write. So I wanted to be like those great writers. And San Diego State built that great writing basis. And it still brought me that too. But then it brought this whole TV thing into the spectrum I never thought about. And all of a sudden I was in a TV studio. And I said to myself, wow, maybe print was never for me in the first place. Maybe it was meant for TV. But the San Diego State regimen, those classes sort of built you up for that. So that way it made that transition not rough at all. I just had to kind of become an adult, but you can only become an adult by experiencing adult things.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my roundabout version of that.
Was there a class assignment that you did at San Diego State, or just some type of project that you worked on that you look back on fondly for whatever reason that we can use as like a learning tool?
Absolutely. In my time, we did a mock television cast, and we did it at the end of one of our JMS classes. And I was already at KUSI at the time, still as an intern. I wasn't being paid yet, and I was able to take a lot of the material I could gather from school, and I took San Diego State, from work. I took San Diego State elements from work, rewrote them, and had support video for them. And I was able to cycle in and do my first ever sportscast as a San Diego State project. And I remember the teacher going, how did you get all these elements? Why do you feel so smooth? And I go, well, because I'm taking one thing from one location and transferring it to the other. I really felt that year and change where I was working and going to San Diego State at the same time. I was really able to make this really cool fusion together and make some really cool stuff from both sides because they had perspective. I loved covering San Diego State basketball then, and I still do now. So it was neat being able to take the things I was doing at school, combine them with things I was doing at work, and create some really fun things.
So I remember when I started at the Daily Aztec, it was drilled into me from day one. You might be a student here. You might want San Diego State to win, but when you are representing the Daily Aztec, you are not a fan. You are objective. You're not wearing SDSU clothing. You're not cheering for them. They have a PR staff of their own. You're here to do independent journalism. And I think that takes time. And I feel really fortunate that I was around people who immediately laid down the law to me. And I say this all the time to college students, and I want to hear your explanation of like what it takes to get out of the mindset of LaDainian Tomlinson was my hero, but now I got a job to do here, and it doesn't involve being a fanboy.
I was really happy with myself. I was never had any difficulty sort of switching that divide because it's always like a horse. I think the best way to think of it is a horse in a horse race. They put blinders on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they put blinders on the horse is that way the horse isn't distracted by the crowd. Another horse, another jockey. It's only focused on what's coming at the end of the road. And I said, I'm not focused on are these people cool or are they not cool. My job is to get this story done, but also to respect them as humans and hardworking people. We think of them as, oh, this guy makes $20 million. He hits a ball, he shoots a basket. He has no humanity. But I go, oftentimes, that person is a father or a mother. This person is going to work. This is their office space. They're at work the same way that you're at work. How do you want to be treated at work? You want to be treated with respect. It doesn't mean you have to be treated like God, but it means you have to be treated with respect and discipline and focus. And so that's why I always took it. So it was never hard for me to transfer from I like you on the outside. How do I treat you on the inside? To me, I'm showing respect to how much I had loved you previously as a fan by treating you with the most respect I could as a member of the media, and to not embezzle you or put you down some weird path, but to be focused and proper with what I wanted to talk to you about. That to me showed more respect about who that person was if I gave them that kind of treatment.
When it comes to the Prep Pigskin Report, and I'm slowing myself down to make sure that I say this correctly, the Prep Pigskin Report, first time at a football game, or maybe one of the initial early games when you were holding onto a camera, and just sort of like what the adrenaline rush was like for that, because high school football is, I think it's the most rewarding, but it's also the toughest thing to cover. You give me your memories.
First memories I have were just dealing with so funny enough, not even the kids, it's the coaches and the fans. Because when you work on the PPR and you just start, a lot of times, especially if you're not from San Diego like me, you know the show exists, but you don't realize the connection it has with the community. And you walk in with a red jacket, and suddenly people are opening doors for you. And people are coming up and talking to you like they're your best friend and you've never met them. Because to them, they own the show. They have ownership of this thing. Their kids have been on it. Their family members have been on it. The PPR is a part of their lineage. The Silver Pigskin Gala, they've attended it, and their family members have been up for major awards. They have a minority ownership in this show. And that's the first thing that knocked me out before I even saw a ball get snapped. And then you're watching just players doing their absolute best and churning for either a scholarship or a college opportunity, or to make these last pieces of joy in this one moment in their life that they know they're never going to have back again. And I was kind of talking about the idea of respect when it comes to talking to your heroes. It's like these kids become your heroes in a whole different manner than you would have ever thought. And then you want to respect the work that they've done by giving them the best experience possible. And the show just becomes so much fun because the high school football experience becomes so much fun, because I've always said, everything about high school and about youth comes back to a Friday night at a football field. Everybody remembers what that's like, whether you're on the sidelines or you're in the crowd. Everybody knows what that's like. It's part of our soul and being a young person and then transitioning to being an older person. So respecting that and giving it its praise and quality. I mean, from day one, it became this is what I want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I thought I did. Then I walked to the football field and said, no, this is what I want to do with my life.
You just gave me this memory that I'd mostly forgotten, Brandon. So after high school, I worked for the Oakland Tribune, and I'll never forget one of my first assignments. It's at a basketball game. It was McClymonds High School against Fremont High School. I walk in the door, layup drills, they're getting warmed up, and one of the players sees me and remembers me, and he goes, "Oakland Tribune's in the house." And then all the players start saying, it's a big game when the Oakland Tribune's in the house. And the players just start like jumping up and down and everything.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my God, this is what it means to cover high school sports. The kids see you and they get juiced and fired up for the game.
And I'll tell you this, Jay, I guarantee you now, if you were to wander back into Oakland, you're going to see kids that are now adults with their own kids. And they're going to say, I remember that time, and I remember you being there, and I really enjoyed reading your work then. And they always remember, for the PPR, I'm in my second generation now of kids, and I now have kids whose dads I covered. And the dads remember me covering them and remember the interviews. Now their kids are 11 or 10, 11, 12 years old, and pretty soon they're going to be on the show. And that is a wild thing to experience, isn't it?
Yes, that is wild. And what it also makes me think about is the cuts throughout journalism, right? Whether it's TV newsroom, whether it's newspapers, the first jobs I got eliminated from sports departments were high school reporters. Yeah. I learned so much. It got me better prepared to cover Major League Baseball because I covered high school sports. And, we're just kind of preaching to the choir here, but maybe the best way to frame this would just be from a current student standpoint. When you cover high school sports, this is how you learn as a reporter. This is how the athletes learn what it means to be interviewed. I remember there were some outlandish things that kids from Oakland said, and I got to decide, all right, do I really need to put this in the paper or not? And
yeah, so we've had stories or two like that.
Yeah.
Where a kid says like a diss, and maybe you don't realize it's a diss. Uh-huh. And then you publish or you air the diss, and then you start a whole week of drama between schools, and you didn't realize you did it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you're bringing this up, because this is really important, Jay. I'm glad you're bringing this up. As I was mentioning, high school sports is the core of Americana, and because it's the core of Americana, it's the core of sports journalism. High school sports is important for journalists because there's no ESPN box score. There's no Fox Sports mega coverage. There's no, I'm going to go on CBS Sports and grab the B-roll. It is hard, crunching work that only you can provide. No one else is going to be the historian of high school football except for us, or any of these high school sports, basketball, baseball, water polo, lacrosse. We are the history of that. So when we see history get eliminated through newspaper cuts or TV stations and entities not wanting to cover things anymore, or small startups on the online side who can't get everywhere because they don't have the budgets, it's a really difficult thing. And in many ways, I'm happy for some entities that they've given it up in San Diego, because then I get to cover it all and own that market. But one thing I'm really happy about is, KUSI was owned by the McKinnon family, and the McKinnon family had a very unique and specific focus on this work and wanted this work to be a part of their lives. They were Texans. They grew up watching Texas high school football. It meant something to them to have that. And then my boss, Paul, meeting with them and saying, well, let's make something, and then them doing that. Since then, we've been sold to Next Star Media Group. And the one thing you fear when you get sold to a corporate entity is, are they going to value this the way that I value it? We've been so lucky that Next Star Media Group has valued what we do and valued what high school sports is, because they value local television content, things that are being developed locally by stations, whether it's in the news or weather or sports or entertainment, fashion, whatever it may be. They want that content on TV. So Nexstar has been incredible making sure the show stays on the air, does what it does, gets better. Yeah, maybe it goes through some changes that are different because it has to evolve to what Nexstar's landscape and what a show should look like. But they've done that. And I'm thankful because we are still covering kids every single weekend. We're covering kids every single weekday through our sports work, and then the PPR remains strong and in great hands with people who wanted to see the show expand and be more powerful. I couldn't be more thankful for that.
All right. So it's the first week in April right now as we record this. If someone wants to be an intern in the fall, when do you start looking for people? What are the types of characteristics that you are seeking in your potential interns?
I will tell you this right now. If you come to me and say, I've worked in a bunch of newsrooms before, I've done a bunch of internships before, I've been watching TV since I was 7, those are all great things. And I want that. I'm not saying I don't want that. I really want that. But the number one thing I care about is I can teach you how to do this job, but I can't teach you how to work hard. I can't teach you how to show up on time. I can't teach you how to show up prepared. And I can't teach you to have a drive that goes beyond the scope of this is just some job I do, because to the people that have worked on the show for the last 25 plus years, this isn't just a job. It's part of their DNA. It's part of their life. And if you have hard work drive and you want to make something larger of yourself and give yourself for a piece of the community, then you are a person that we want to have come in this office and talk about being on that show. We start sending out applications on June 1st. Anyone could always contact me and get in my face about that, and I'll make sure that they're in a place they need to be. But the greatest thing about the PPR is rarely do you get to do a job that makes you happier by the time it's over. And there's never been a PPR experience with somebody who's finished out a year who hasn't said, I am a happier, better person because I spent my life, these 4 or 5 months of my life, working in the interest of 17-year-old kids. They're always better off.
I know that what you just said is true because the quantity of people who I've seen and their photo on LinkedIn is them wearing a PPR jacket or it's them holding a microphone that's PPR. That's when I know that they're proud of the work that they did, right? And I see it all the time.
It's true. It's true, Josh. And yeah, that's a source of pride for me. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a source of pride for all the people who work really hard on the show. Myself, Paul, and all the other great people on our show that have dedicated ourselves to it. But people know the weight that jacket carries. People who work for the show know the weight it carries, the weight of doing well, but the weight of its effect and how people see you. It's a point of pride. We've had great San Diego State people on our show who've worked a whole bunch of different roles and created value. And anytime I get a San Diego State person, my first question is, how much time did you spend at Trujillo's? And my second question is, are you ready to work? So, because they know if they're coming from San Diego State, they're going to have a higher degree of expectations from me because the last thing I want is a lazy Aztec at this job. So.
Yeah. Let's get into you mentioned there's a lot of people that help you out. How many different interns? Well, give us the numbers of all the different people that are involved in this and all that.
Mm-hmm. So for our show, we usually have about 15 to 20 videographers that we hire seasonally. And then we have usually 20 to 30 red jacket producers that we hire seasonally. So those jobs can range from going to games and producing segments for us, as in watching the highlights, making sure the right ones get cut and writing shot sheets for us, to working internally, which is making sure things run on the show that are attached to our show and working on the rundowns, or working in our web department, working in social media. Those are sort of the 3 main areas that our red jackets take up. And then we adjust the jobs from there. And then at our end of year work at the gala, where we give out the Silver Pigskin Player of the Year award and the rest of our gala awards, we have different jobs for helping organize and getting that show together in early December. So there's a lot of different arenas. That's why we don't ask for the same job profile, because a lot of times the number one thing that a person can bring to a job is their life experience. So many times, and it's funny, we're on a podcast about, being a veteran of San Diego State and the importance of college. College is very important. I want it to be important. But a lot of times it's your life experience that changes how we perceive and how we can use you. I don't need everybody to come from the same background. I need someone to come from the East County. I need someone to come from the Bay. I need someone to come from Missouri, because you bring your different perspective. Where you live, where you grew up, how high school football was where you were, the things that you're an expert in, things that you can maybe want to ask kids about and get them engaged about. So don't be afraid of your experience level. It's your experience in the world level I'm really the most interested.
When I was at San Diego State and I watched the PPR, it was on at 10 p.m. Is it still 10 p.m.?
It is basically 10:30 to midnight.
10:30 to midnight. Okay. So let's go the 30 minutes before you go live. Describe for us the chaos, the adrenaline, the fun, the how things are all coming together and how things come together during the show once you're on the air.
So, the PPR process, to get you to the 30 minutes, I got to start with the start of the process, which strangely is think of if it's week 4, it's 30 minutes to go. The process to get me to week 4 started on Thursday of week 3, building the rundown from there, and then trying to organize, okay, what are the main narratives? What are the things about this episode that we're going to have? And what do the games tell us about what the story of the week should be? And then we start whittling that down to, okay, which crew of photographers and producers are going to go out and make that vision a reality. And then they're asking questions to the teams, they're asking questions back to us, we're cycling it through them, and we're running this cycle through 15 or 20 different crews, plus everybody else is working internally. But then there's always pieces we miss. And every Friday night is unpredictable. Every game is unpredictable. So imagine that unpredictability times 25 games in a night. So as we get down there and the time whittles down in the hourglass, we're finding out things and we're moving things in the rundown and we're pushing things up and down in the show as things move. And then we have to have a whole group of 15 to 20 people who are all thinking the same way so we can all communicate it correctly and be able to move. And Paul, God bless him, is sitting on the set and going, this isn't in yet, move this down here, or this happened, make sure that runs again. And then we're going in and we're telling him information. So the best nights are the ones where it gets a little hectic, because when things get a little hectic, we actually start working better because the adrenaline starts flowing. So usually a boring night at the studio ends up in a boring show, but an exciting night where things are moving around ends up with a really exciting night.
From a technological standpoint, when you first started off and it was tapes and it was these big old tapes, you had to drive back to the studio in order to put it in these machines that you described. How has technology changed your ability to send in different footage, send in different things?
The first thing it's changed is social media becomes the product for the breakers. And then we can take that, cell phone video and get social media cooking. And that helps us establish how we might want to change or adjust the show when we get to 11 o'clock and the big show comes on. And then everybody's cutting, 90% of people are now cutting highlights through laptops at games. And that allows them to stay at games longer, get sound bites, learn more information. So the show is becoming richer in content because the travel time gets cut down. That's been a unique thing. Before it was, we got to leave here by 9:30 no matter what, because we got to make the show, or we're going to have to redo everything. Now we can sit and let things soak in a way that we couldn't in 2007. So that's really nice.
Yeah, shoot. I remember when I was covering high school football and there was a similar type of show in the Bay Area. And basically they would be at one game for the first half and then they'd have to leave to go over to some other place and try to get a couple of highlights for the second half and then hightail it back to San Jose in order to get in the studio. And I was always in awe of how they did it. And then I'd be back in the newspaper. They'd call me, hey, we need some final scores from you. And so, you become sharing information in that way to kind of help each other out. I'm thrilled to know that the technology can help you, to create a show that's even better and more real time like that.
And it's also easier to implant it with younger people because there's a time when I'm trying to teach people tape and they don't understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But now with a lot of these new tools, a kid understands what we're trying to film now better than they did in 2010.
Yeah.
They understand exactly what we're trying to get across. And they understand that the shows like the PPR aren't just TV shows. They're TV shows, but they're also social media shows. And that the PPR experience doesn't start and stop from 10:30 to midnight. That process goes through an entire day, month, week, year. And so our fans are connected with us in a wholly different way. Just last week, we re-showed a clip from a couple years ago of Reggie Bush talking about our show on the I Am Athlete podcast. We had played the clip before, but it got posted again. It was making the rounds. And suddenly we were just getting all these comments about, I remember this show. I remember this. This is where you need to be on Friday nights. But they're talking about it. They're talking about their experience from maybe 10, 15 years ago. But they're talking about it in a new way, which engages other people that maybe forgot the process or people who are new to the process. So now that whole cycle of our show, it renews itself in a whole new way.
Right. Well, as I teased at the start of this podcast, it has launched the careers of a lot of people, not just you, Brandon. And we can take as long as we want on this. I don't want anyone to get excluded and have their feelings hurt, but there's a rich alumni of reporters, producers, videographers. I'll give the floor to you about where you want to start in terms of just the quantity of people who've gone on to media careers after beginning with the PPR.
Oh gosh, we've had people on the national scale who work in the PPR. First thought is people like Heidi Watney, who's worked in Major League Baseball circles. She worked on this show. We got people in top 10 markets in the country who have worked on this show. We also have people who are still working in this market who went to San Diego State. I think of my good pal Ali Wagner, San Diego State alum, who's still working with us right now, has been with us through thick and thin. But there's just quite the laundry list of humans who've sort of made it through the cracks. I sit here and I go, I'll get calls from people who are like, "Oh, I got this job in Las Vegas, or I got this job in West Virginia because I worked on the show, or I went to school here, and you guys helped me out and helped me work on a project." And it's kind of beyond compare, and it's really cool now to see people break into shows because now as a leader, for lack of a better term, the number two guy in the program. It's neat because you're really taking a huge step. You hire somebody, and that person that you hire becomes somebody somewhere else. It's like you're their parent.
I was just going to say, you sound like a parent right now, that these are like your kids.
Yeah, it really is. That's really what it is like. They get developed and they come out and they're in the real world. They want to know what to do, but they don't know, and you get to guide them through it. And it's a beautiful thing when they want to invest in you. It just makes you want to invest in them. So I'll have these partners over the years. And I'm like, I want to invest in you because I see potential in you to do things that we're doing right now. And then they give you a call and they're out there and they're doing it. And you're like, yeah, this is what I expected you to do. You just need to learn how to put the pieces together and see it for yourself. Boy, it's cool. It's the PPR will be the first thing on my tombstone, and that's a great thing.
Oh, I like that. I like that so much. What else would you like to add that I've not asked you that I probably should have asked you, whether it's about PPR or anything else with your career?
Nothing about my career except for just don't make any of the mistakes I did. But as it pertains to people who want to get into the business, might be listening to this, the number one thing is you are the business you make. Anywhere you are is a place that's willing to be used for learning more. I'll give you a great example. And the example I'll give is the person that connected you and I together, which is Bella, great lady. Bella left San Diego State and left working with me and didn't really know what to do. And one of the things we talked about was you can create news that gets attention for yourself. And the more you do that, the more people are going to see you, especially in the social media environment. So she decided to work on her hometown, Vacaville, and making material about their year because no one else is covering them in depth. Take your cell phone out, go buy a little microphone, and start covering them in depth. And now look at where it's gotten her. Now she's doing sideline work again and being great because she was a self-starter. And that's what I say to everybody else. You are the journalism machine in the area that you live in. You can make people interested in what you do, and you can get your spotlight on yourself by just putting in that creative work of how to showcase the world around you. That's what being a social media influencer.
Yeah, and I would also say that this also speaks to just the power of what alumni associations mean. And for some schools, they're enormous, and for some schools, they're not. Mm-hmm. I feel like San Diego State has a really proud one, what Brandon was referring to. So in case this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, I do play-by-play for the Albuquerque Isotopes. That's the Rockies AAA affiliate. We started the season in Sacramento, and the Sacramento Rivercats play-by-play guy, Zach Bay Rudy, as soon as he sees me, he goes, "Hey, you got to meet this girl. She went to San Diego State. Her name's Bella." So we start talking off and on throughout the weekend. After one of the games, shoot, it must have been like 30 minutes after a game, and we're just continuing to talk. I'm learning about her career, what she wants to do. She's telling me about you, Brandon. She's telling me about like how COVID impacted her and what she's been trying to do. And you just feel this immediate bond with people from your school when you're like, yeah, I ate at Trujillo's also, I ate at, what used to be Salazar's, right? Like you, oh yeah, I lived at this place, and you just have this bond, and it just makes you want to help those people. And, and it made me want to help Bella and Bella told me, well, you got to get Brandon on your podcast. And so absolutely, here we are, and that's the truth behind what it means to be a member of an alumni association.
Yeah. And so many times we think we're in this by ourselves, but we're not. We have these random connections with people that provide the strength when we know the same territory. I was talking about San Diego State basketball before. It is still my favorite thing to cover in this town that isn't a high school entity, because to me, it's still the most pure, even as this team has been in the Final Four and everything else, right? I love talking to a person that loves the starting lineup moment the same way I do, that hears the national anthem being done the same way it was done 20 years ago, by that great pep band and this this legacy of people, and it connects us all. And so when someone says, I went to the Aztec game last night, I was covering it. It used to be I talked to Lorenzo Wade, then it was I talked, to Jeremy. Oh, now it's I just talked to Nick Boyd. This really cool connector from Kawhi all the way to Magungwa. It's this really neat, pathway. And then the football team has that too. I don't want to leave them out of this. Someone who says, oh, I used to cover San Diego State in the bowels of the queue. Now it's, oh, I covered them at Snapdragon. We have this unique bond of how these players and these moments sort of come together. And it's unique, and it's something that only a small group of people can share. So the more that we utilize that to understand each other, the better off everybody who's part of the journalism program can be.
Yeah,
it really is. And I had some great teachers too. Rebecca Coates, Laney Lockwood, just a couple of the top of my head. And then there are still great teachers there now. Yeah, just a lot of great people.
Absolutely. All right, Brandon, this was so much fun. I'm glad that we connected, and I can't wait for the time that we can hang out in person, whether it's on a story or something else, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Big time. Really had a good time. Got me thinking about a lot of stuff. Gosh,
Once again, that is Brandon Stone, sports anchor, reporter, KUSI and Fox 5. And of course, the legendary Prep Pigskin Report. My name is Josh Sushan. I'm your host. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Where Ya At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms in person or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.